Leroy Sibbles was born Leroy Sibblies on the 29th of January, 1949. He is a Jamaican reggae musician and producer. He was the lead singer for the Heptones in the 1960s and 1970s. In addition to his work with the Heptones, Sibbles was a session bassist and arranger at Clement Coxsone Dodd's Jamaica recording and publishing studio and the associated Studio One label during the prolific late 1960s. He was described as the greatest all-round talent in reggae history by Kevin O'Brien Chang and Wayne Chen in their 1998 book Reggae Routes. The son of a grocer, Sibbles began singing in the 1950s and also played guitar, having been taught by Trenchtown Rastas, brother Huntley, and Carrot. Barry Llewellyn and Earl Morgan had formed the Heptones in 1958, and Sibbles was in a rival group along with two friends. Sibbles joined the Heptones in 1965 after the two groups competed in a street corner contest. The trio made their first recordings for Ken Lack in 1966 with Schoolgirls and Gunman Coming to Town, the latter the A-side of their debut single. Though the songs did not achieve hit status, the latter composition made the playlists at Radio Jamaica Rediffusion RJR. They moved on to Clement Coxsone Dodd's Studio One, where they stayed until 1971. The Heptones were among the most influential groups of the rocksteady era, along with the Pioneers, the Gay Lads, the Paragons, the Uniques, and the Techniques. Signature Heptones songs included Baby, Get in the Groove, Ting-a-Ling, Fatty Fatty, Got to Fight On, To the Top, Party Time, and Sweet Talking. The group's Studio One output has been collected on albums The Heptones, On Top, Ting-a-Ling, Freedom Line, and the Heartbeat Records anthology, Sea of Love. Beyond his work as a singer-songwriter, Sibbles contributed to the collective output of Studio One as a bass player during the late 1960s. Keyboardist and arranger Jackie Mittoo encouraged Sibbles to play the bass when he needed a bassist for his jazz trio. When Mittoo left full-time duties at Studio One, Sibbles auditioned singers, arranged sessions, sang harmony, and played bass as a part of the studio group variously known as the Sound Dimension and Soul Vendors. These musicians, with engineering supervision Sylvan Morris, played backing tracks used by vocalists Bob Andy, Alton Ellis, Horace Andy, Carlton Manning, the Abyssinians, the Gladiators, Willie Williams, Ken Booth, John Holt, Burning Spear, Dennis Brown, Slim Smith, and scores of others. Sibbles was a contributor to tracks including Freedom Blues, which evolved into the Jamaican rhythm known as MPLA, by Roy Richards, Love Me Forever, by Carlton and the Shoes, Sata Masagana and Declaration of Rights, by the Abyssinians, Stars and Queen of the Minstrels, by the Eternals, 10 to 1, by the Mad Lads, Door Peep, Shall Not Enter, by Burning Spear, and the instrumental Full Up, which was used by Musical Youth for their huge worldwide hit, Pass the Dutchie. Because of the Jamaican process of versioning and the liberal recycling of rhythms in subsequent years, many of the songs, rhythms, and melodies written and recorded during the rocksteady era, the aforementioned in particular, continue to be referenced today. The most frequently referenced of Sibbles' bass lines is that found on the instrumental Full Up, popularized internationally by Musical Youth's recording of Pass the Dutchie, an adaptation of Mighty Diamond's Pass the Coochie. Sibbles' legacy also endures in Horace Andy's tribute to him, Mr. Bassie. While Sibbles has been credited with the original Real Rock bass line, this was more likely performed by Boris Gardner. The bass parts Sibbles and others developed in rocksteady used a rhythmic space found in later roots reggae, where the notes were not necessarily played or sustained on each downbeat of a 4/4 measure. Sibbles has explained that his style was to lag the downbeat slightly. Other musicians involved in the Studio One Rocksteady sessions included Richard Ace and Robbie Lynn on keyboards, Bunny Williams, Joe Isaacs and Phil Callender on drums, Eric Frater and Ernest Ranglin on guitar, and the horn section of Felix Deadly Headley, Bennett on saxophone, and Vin Gordon, aka Don D. Jr., on trombone, work with other producers. After Studio One, Sibbles and the Heptones recorded for other producers, including Lee Perry, Harry J., Jojo Who Kim, Niney the Observer, Clive Chin, Gussie Clark, Lloyd Campbell, Prince Buster, Ossie Hibbert, Phil Pratt, Harry Mudie, Jeffrey Chung, Danny Holloway, Rupie Edwards, and Joe Gibbs. Other Heptones releases from the early 1970s were Book of Rules, Trojan Records, and the Harry Johnson-produced album Cool Rasta, Trojan, recorded just before the group benefited from the internationalization of reggae via Island Records. Danny Holloway produced Night Food and Lee Scratch. Perry produced Party Time, were the fruit of the association with Island. As a solo artist, Sibbles worked with Lloyd Bulwacky Barnes, Lloyd Parks, Sly and Robbie, Augustus Pablo, Bruce Cockburn, and Lee Perry, but primarily produced himself. Sibbles moved to Canada in 1973, where he married and remained for 20 years, and won a Juno Award for Best Male Vocalist in 1983, and a Juno Award for Best Reggae Album in 1987. He left the Heptones in 1976, midway through a US tour. Also in Canada, he recorded an album for A&M and licensed several albums to Pete Weston's Micron label, including Now and Strictly Roots. In 1990, he collaborated on the one-off single Can't Repress the Cause, a plea for greater inclusion of hip-hop music in the Canadian music scene, with Dance Appeal, a supergroup of Toronto area musicians that included Devon, Maestro Fresh Wes, Dream Warriors, Be Cool, Mishi Me, Lillian Allen, Aria Fakin, HDV, Dion, Thando Hyman, Carla Marshall, Messenger, Gillian Mendez, Lorraine Scott, Lorraine Segato, Self-Defense, Zama, and Thyron Lee White. Sibbles continued to visit Jamaica and performed at Reggae Sunsplash in 1980, 1981, 1983, 1986, and 1990. He returned to the Heptones in 1991. In 1996, he recorded Original Full Up with Beanie Man. Sibbles is featured in the 2009 documentary Rocksteady, The Roots of Reggae. He continued to perform and record into 2010. Production work. Sibbles moved into production in 2009 and set up the Bright Beam record label. He has produced records by singer Sagittar and DJ Chapter, as well as his own recordings, including a successful cover version of Harry Hippie. Now in his 70s, Leroy Sibbles remains active, recording, touring, mentoring. He's not a relic, he's a living bridge between generations. Young reggae acts like Chronix, Protoji, and Kabaka Pyramid all pay homage to the foundations laid by Sibbles and his peers. He's appeared on podcasts, performed in unplugged acoustic sessions, and even released surprise singles online. He uses social media to share wisdom, promote peace, and stay connected with fans across the world. Leroy also devotes time to community projects, especially those aimed at music education in inner-city Jamaica. His mission today is the same as it was in Trenchtown: uplift through sound. Please subscribe.